Greetings dear viewer and welcome to my September album haul. Now I'm sure you must be wondering, why is the Dirvinator doing a September album haul when it's halfway through October? Well, it's simple. I've just finished up probably the most busiest 3 weeks of my year. Starting out with a couple of job applications, then leading into the school holidays, which is one of the only busy periods of the year for one of my part-time jobs. Meanwhile, at my other part-time jobs, I'm getting a couple more hours, more responsibilities, which is a nice change of pace for me. And then on top of that, I've had a couple of job interviews. In fact, I've just finished a 13-day work streak, and it's my first day off today, which is the 15th of October. So yeah, pretty much I haven't had a chance to sit down and make the video. The only chance I had was on the last day of September, which I thought, okay, I could sit down and record the album haul and then get it out at the start of October, be perfect timing, but I went to see Holloway Holiday, which is a fantastic Wellington, New Zealand-based band, and I wanted to create the road to Holloway Holiday first and then leave this video till later, and I thought, well, I could combine it with the October one like I've done in previous months, but I've got a couple of cool ones to talk about this month, and because I work so much, let's just say October's looking at being another longer video, and I don't like making videos longer than they need to be because I ramble when I'm not scripting my videos like I am now, and I just knocked the camera over. I pretty much just got back from a job interview as well, so you'll forgive me for getting this video out late, but because it's probably going to end up coming out near the end of October, I'm joined by my spooky meerkat friend, because, Halloween, even though most of the supermarkets have already got tinsel and wrapping paper out on the shelves anyway. Allow me to dive straight into the September album haul. Now, there weren't any new release albums that I got this month, which I'll explain later, but there was a new release EP. Holloway Holiday released Prescription Cosmetics, their debut physical release EP. Now, this album is comprised of 5 songs that fully encapsulate the Glitter Boy era. You see, they had a EP that was like a digital only one, released when they were still, forming the band, a very early one. And there's still some really cool tracks on there, but these have been the ones that they've released with pretty much the current lineup. And each of the tracks, I didn't realize it, but I've actually been a fan of theirs pretty much since the first track they released. So I've been around when they've released each subsequent one, so I've gotten used to it, I've learnt the words, I've enjoyed it. I was in the music video for one of them, which was an amazing experience. And I'm even featured in the little booklet in this, so that's really cool. Not to mention I got to see them live last month and get a couple of their awesome t-shirts, so yeah, needless to say, I love Holloway Holiday. I was so tempted to do an album review, but as I've said several times in my album haul videos, don't ever let me become a music critic, because I don't know how to talk about music aside from that bit sounds cool, that bit was pretty cool, I don't like that one there, but the rest is pretty yeah, don't let me become a music critic. However, I will say that the Glitter Boy era has made for some very, very interesting themes and ideas, and I love the amount of passion and effort they put into their music. Like, play it backwards, there's a secret message, or you could read the title a different way and it's like, oh, that means something else I didn't think, like, the Please Hold, I've known that song since I came out, and yet a couple of weeks ago I only just clicked that it's a double meaning. I thought, oh, duh, it's right there in front of me, and I didn't get the subtext. Oh, yes, subtext, metaphors, If you like 21 Pilots, I reckon you'll get a kick out of Holloway Holiday. Maybe I'm too tired to be recording this. Prescription Cosmetics, it's an EP released by a small band, and yet they made the effort to turn it into a CD complete with a lyric booklet and just thanks and all this information, like just things that make me as an album collector just gush because it's so good. From the cover to the Easter eggs to the live performances, just everything about it. Holloway Holiday is a really special band, and I believe that they have the talent and the drive to go far. Even if their music isn't what you'd call mainstream, you go to one of their shows, it's great. I'm getting sidetracked now, I'm just talking about how much I love Holloway Holiday, but my final word is Prescription Cosmetics. It's really good. It may end up, being the next regional at best where everyone wants to get a hold of one, and I've got 2 copies, so haha! Moving right along to another New Zealand artist. Navy released the Final Pieces EP to digital streaming services. A physical release, but not every band can afford to produce CDs for EPs and stuff, but Foley, Navy, Josie Moon, anytime you guys release CDs, I'm there. After releasing Pieces a month or so ago, which was such a bop, it's getting radio play, it's in magazines and that, like, Navy is definitely an up-and-coming artist, featured in lots of interviews, and just, it's really cool to watch the rise of this New Zealand artist, which, you don't see all that often. That aside, personally, I feel like this EP is probably the weakest of her output. However, being the final pieces, like it's in the title, and it was marketed and promoted as like, hey, this is the final chapter in this saga, I suppose. Like, if you've listened to Navy's music before, there's always messages and there's themes there, and it's all relating around, breakups and healing and that. And I felt like, personally, as an outsider listening in, that it was already kind of tied up with the previous 2 EPs, but this one, I don't know, there's a couple of nice songs, obviously. They're all good songs, but aside from Pieces, they're more ballads and slow songs. So of the 4 tracks, Pieces is amazing, and I quite like, I can't remember the name of the song in the moment, but it speaks about like learning to lose a friend when you were so young, and it's not related to like anything else, it's its own separate story. And it's really heartbreaking, and I really like that song. It's not one that, you know, you'll hear on the radio, but when you give it a listen, you know, it's sad and bittersweet, and I really like it. I personally enjoy her previous EPs and some of her older singles more, but that's not to say that I don't enjoy what this one has to offer. I'm just glad that, you know, it's all wrapped up in a bow, and we can look forward to seeing what this artist has to show, you know, share with us in the future. Actually, while we're on the theme of EPs, Saint Motel released part 2 to the official motion picture soundtrack. I'm 99% sure that's what it's called. I love Saint Motel. They are probably one of my new favourite bands, along with Holloway Holiday. I love their sound. I love their mariachi songs. I love their acoustic. Like, just, it's this unique band with so many different sounds and visuals to their videos. They're kind of fun to follow. Even their website, the design, like their web design is so good. I went to try and buy a couple of CDs. I'm trying to figure out, alright, how do I get to the store? Saint Motel, really good. They actually put A Good Song Never Dies on this EP, which was previously released as just like a standalone single, so I'm really happy about that. And spoilers for the October album haul, if it gets here in time. I'm really glad I got hold of it. Right, now the album I haven't been looking forward to talking about, one that I wish I could have gotten but didn't. Ava Max released her debut album, Across the World, and I wasn't going to get it, but when it came out I thought, you know what, I might as well. And well, it didn't come to New Zealand, but JB Hi-Fi and Mighty Ape had order listings. You could order it for $30. $30 for an album, like, unless it's, I don't know, an old rarity, a deluxe 2-disc, something that you wouldn't otherwise see. No, I'm not paying, you know, $25+ for an album. At least not one that I wasn't planning on getting anyway. My apologies if you're getting disorientated by the camera moving. I have to keep plugging it in because it keeps dying. So Ava Max is an artist I've mentioned pretty much every month. I think she's been constantly releasing new music in anticipation for her debut album. And my thoughts on the artist aside, because to start with, you know, I don't really like pop music, but Sweet But Psycho was one of the songs that kind of broke through, and it was an earworm, it was catchy, and I really liked it. And then I looked up around the music, you know, Torn, So Am I, Salt. To start with, I thought she was going, you know, like the self-love angle. So, you know, she was going to be an artist that promoted people, you know, like, hey, it's okay to be you, that kind of angle. But very quickly, or at least this year in particular, it just seems like more vanity. Whether I don't blame her, it's more just the music industry, I'd say, maybe her manager, but it seems like becoming just another pop star rather than, you know, what I assumed she was going to be. Now, that's not the fault of the artist, of course, and it might not even necessarily be a negative. It's just my perception of what I thought Ava Max's, you know, musical journey was going to be compared to how it is now. Regardless of context, the album itself, the songs, they're fine. Some of them are bops, some of them, you know, they hit or miss, but most of them I quite like. They have, you know, your typical pop trappings that maybe annoy a couple of people, but the singles are great. There's a couple of inclusions that I'm finding a little questionable, and I would have gladly replaced a couple of them that were released before the album with other tracks that she's already released over the years that somehow didn't make it on. Not Your Barbie Girl, that's one I'm glad it didn't make the album. At worst, it's another harmless pop album. At best, there are some really good bangers on here, and I do genuinely enjoy listening to most of what's on offer. A lot of it is tracks that have been released over the past few years, because obviously this is a debut album, and some of the new tracks, like Belladonna particularly, I really enjoy. Some of them, not so much. I think the theme of the album is pretty dumb, but that's just a personal thing. I just realised I think I've discussed about half a dozen albums and only one CD, but, you know, I'm just ignoring the structure I tried to set up in the January album haul. Moving right along, my next album is Pink, Hurts to Be Human. Now, I wouldn't say I'm a Pink fan. Being in charge of the music for one of my retail jobs, you know, I have to get upbeat pop music, and I try and go for songs that aren't singles that you've heard on the radio over and over again, and Hurts to Be Human is one of those albums I've gone to a couple of times to try and find some good upbeat pop tunes, and I found a couple of good bangers. So I thought, you know, when I saw this one dirt cheap, brand new, I thought, oh, I'll pick that one up. And the risk didn't quite pay off. It's it's fine. I'm sure if you're a diehard fan of Pink, you'll enjoy it. But then I also think if you're a diehard fan of Pink, you've probably grown a bit disassociated with her modern albums, you know, trying to keep up with what the mainstream sound is, losing a bit of what, at least for what I knew Pink to be, was, you know, more, a little bit more punk rock, still that pop mainstream edge, but, you know, there was a little bit of attitude there, whereas this, it's not lost entirely. I don't want to say bland, but nothing on there grabbed me to start with. So, Hurts to Be Human, it's perfectly fine, and I just realised I'm reviewing the album, which I'm not supposed to be doing. Next up, a classic, iconic album, London Calling by The Clash. Now, this is one that I've heard about for years, you know, being a fan of Rock Band. I love the song London Calling, and a lot of other songs by The Clash that I thought were on here, like Rock the Casbah, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? And then I get this, and the only song I know on here is the title track, London Calling. And while I was Googling it, and it said, you know, The Clash, bit of punk, bit of pop, bit of reggae, I thought, what? Reggae? And I made the mistake of listening to disc 2 first, because it's a double album, and yeah, it's a very weird, ever so slightly subtle reggae tone to a couple of the songs, which is very unexpected for me, considering, you know, I've pretty much just been rocking Rock the Casbah and London Calling for ages on Rock Band. I've yet to listen to disc 1, I've had a busy month, I'm sorry. It's definitely worth the iconic status from what I've heard so far. Like, I can imagine these songs back in the old days, oh man. That would have been so cool. But please don't get mad at me because I'm not going in depth on this iconic album that's beloved by many, and I think it's like the 40th anniversary re-release and like a slidey sleeve that just won't stay. Again, as a collector, this is like one of my biggest nitpicks. It's just like the bane of my existence. That and CDs that are too tall to fit on a shelf for whatever reason. Just a quick side note while editing, it's been a couple of days since I recorded the video, and I've actually had a chance to sit down and listen to the album in its entirety, start to finish, disc 1 and disc 2, and yeah, I really like it. That stuff that Wikipedia was talking about, the reggae influences, that really is limited to a couple of tracks on disc 2. Otherwise, I do really like this. I can't understand a word the singer is saying, but I like the music. I like every third word that I can understand, and I'll definitely be checking out more of The Clash. I know their last album wasn't very good, so I'll have to check out some things like Rock the Casbah. I'm going to listen to that album definitely next. And at last, wrapping up the albums of the month, it was my birthday in early September, and the present I got from Tamsin's parents was Blink-182's solo album. I remember when I was listening to Nine and California day after day, I listened to their greatest hits CD and realised I don't really like Tom DeLonge. That's his voice I'm talking about. I don't know anything about him as a person. But I've always loved I Miss You. That song you've heard a bajillion times, the slow one by Blink-182. I love that song so much. So this was the album that I listened to the most while trying to get into old Blink-182, and yeah, it easily paid off. I love all the singles. I really enjoy like the in-between tracks, the interludes, and this is like a cool, not rare, but it's a deluxe edition that comes with a version of Not New. That differs from the one on the Greatest Hits collection, so it's one of those things that it's not going to appeal to anyone but someone like me who's like really into album collecting and that. So it's a slightly different song that's on a different album. Ever so slightly, but I love it. This is a really cool album. I finally gotten used to Tom DeLonge, so let's just say October you'll be seeing some more of Blink-182. Those 4 CDs wrap up the album haul. Now for the second best part of the video, my favourite new tracks of the month. Change, because why not? Right at the start of the month, You Me at 6 released Beautiful Way. Now, You Me at 6 is a band that, despite I said I was getting into them, I didn't really get into them as much as I thought I would, like the All American Rejects and Simple Plan. But between Make Me Feel Alive, that came out a couple of months ago, and Beautiful Way that came out in September, both songs, they are so different. They're like, not quite screamo, but really heavy, shouty. Like, the language is something I wouldn't otherwise listen to, but I don't know what it is. Those 2 tracks, I can't get enough of them. I keep singing them, and I don't know why. Maybe it was all the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus I was listening to, but Beautiful Way and Make Me Feel Alive, they are some of my favourite tracks of the year, and I'm really looking forward to their new album, and I really need to go back and listen to some of their older stuff. Again, spoiler alert for the October album haul when it gets here. But I want to know what they sounded like and whether there was an evolution to this point here, or did it just go like early 2000s punk rock, try to go mainstream, and then this. But yeah, I love it. I just realized because of my accent, I can't say Sia's name without sounding like I'm saying Sia, but Sia released Courage to Change, which I believe is from a movie soundtrack. Now this is a really cool track which is released at the perfect time in 2020, this turbulent year of political, everything is so emotional and politically charged, and this song is just like, it starts off like a nice piano ballad and then it becomes bombastic and epic, and I'm very curious to see how it fits into whatever movie it's a part of, but it's got a good message and good tunes, and Sia has released a couple of, not duds lately, but like, she hasn't released an album since her Christmas album, and even before then, This Is Acting needed the deluxe edition to be worth getting in my opinion, but this is another one of her really good ones. I really enjoy this one. Go listen to it, I suppose. How do I talk about music? I don't know. Here's one I know how to talk about. Bastille, one of my favourite bands of all time, and one of the only concerts I got to see this year before, you know, the world ended. Still released their new track Survivin', which is a very low-key, bass heavy, really unique sound for Bastille, and that's saying something because Bastille have dipped their toes in so many genres with their remixes and their mixtapes with featured artists. And I mean, I suppose I could have said the same when they released What You Gonna Do a couple of months ago that had I think Timson said it was the guitarist from Blur, but while that song was probably the most heaviest Bastille track yet, this is probably the most, well, it's not the lo-fi because they do some really nice slow songs, but it was different. There's this weird like brudoo song. I don't know if it's like a bass or something on a computer. It's a weird sound. In fact, the whole song's got like a weird sound. I messaged a friend of mine who lives in the UK. We're like both Bastille fanatics, and I said, I'm not really vibing with it. And pretty much the day after I sent that, I found myself singing it, and then the lyrics are as good as ever, Dan's vocals are as good as ever, the music's still good, it's very different, and by now, like a month and a half later, I have warmed to it, and I do like it. I feel like, to start with, I didn't think it warranted being a single, but I'm kind of glad it did because it's given me time to get used to it, because if it was just another track on the album, I probably wouldn't have fallen in love with it as I have now, and even that's a strong word. I don't love it, I like it, I vibe to it. I can't wait for their fourth album. Speaking of singles and fourth albums, Of Monsters and Men released Visitor. Wow! Their third album, Fever Dream, came out last year, and I don't know why, I just wasn't feeling it. It was nothing to do with the album. The album was great, but it was just the time it came out. I think it was still when I was obsessing over Blink-182 and All Time Low. I bought the album, I listened to it a few times, but I just didn't get into it, which is annoying because some of the songs on there were so good, like Row 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 and Alligator. They're really good tracks. But this is like full-on pop rock. They've all but certainly abandoned that kind of folk edge that they had, like that indie folk sound that they had on their first two albums. And it still sounds just as good. It's unique, it's different to what they've done before, but I really like it. And there's something about the line, like my parents' house, I've become a visitor. I can't relate to it, but ooh, that's a good line. That tells a story in itself. I'm just checking my notes, and that's pretty much all the major new music releases. The Gorillaz have released another couple of tracks, which, like any Gorillaz album I have, they're hit and miss. You know, I love Momentary Bliss and Désolé, I think that's how you pronounce it. And then there's like Aries and Pac-Man that I just don't really care for. They have released a song in October that I really like, but I'll have to wait till next month to talk about it. I have all of the Gorillaz albums except for The Fall, because as I said before, I'm not going to pay like $30+ for an album I'm not really fussed on. I just realised that makes me a hypocrite because I pre-ordered Song Machine for $32. Oh, Zayn! You know Zayn. One Direction has a very interesting career trajectory. Left One Direction, forged his own path, made Pillow Talk, which is a fun trap pop mix that I know Tamsin loved that album, Mind of Mine, and then a couple of years later released Icarus Falls, a double album that was just straight pop and had like one upbeat song on it and was kind of just generic but alright. Released some really good bangers in the meantime, like the Light Me Up in Flames and the crossover with Sia and even Taylor Swift. Ugh. So when he teased his first single off the third album and it was coming up as a premiere on YouTube, I thought, oh cool, this will be great, and then I listened to it and he straight up put me to sleep. And that video got 9 million views in 24 hours. I can't even remember the name of the song, it was dull. And that does it for the album haul of September 2020. I'm looking forward to October already. There's a couple of cool album releases. You've got Song Machine by the Gorillaz. You've got Bon Jovi's 2020 album, which I'm hesitant, but I'm willing to give it a chance. And of course, Razzmatazz by I Don't Know How, But They Found Me. I haven't liked a single song they've released off it yet. I love their debut EP. I really hope it's good. Thank you all very much for watching. Please feel free to check out some of the links in the description to Holloway Holiday, Navy, some of the other artists, and I'll catch you guys next time. Speaking of singles and fourth albums of Monsters and Relent. Speaking of singles and fourth albums of Monsters and Relent.